Hey guys, it's Abigail. Welcome to another week. I hope you're doing great. I hope you're doing well with your goals. The month of March is almost over. How are you doing? Can you believe half of the year, the first half of the year is almost gone? And I hope you're doing good today. Have a great video for you. It's another reaction video. And we're going to react to today's show. They did an expose or a little bitty mini topic about young men today and the pressures of masculinity. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with a brother that you believe will benefit from this. And let's go ahead and watch.
Gun violence and the threat of it is on center stage this week. You had the March on Washington Saturday. You saw yet another school shooting this past week. A 17-year-old boy opening fire inside a Maryland high school, shooting 2 students and killing one of them. That happened less than 6 weeks after the Parkland school shooting, where a 19-year-old man shot and killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. It has us thinking about what America's deadliest school shootings have in common. Boys pulling the trigger. So what is happening to today's young men, and how can we help them? In this morning's Sunday Spotlight, Stephanie Rule sat down with some teens to talk about the pressures they face and what it means to grow up male.
If you want to be man enough, you don't cry.
You can't show pain, you can't show upset.
Man up, dominate, turn it all off.
Emotional struggle. A fact of life boys find obvious, but it's largely gone ignored. Until recently, tragedy forced the conversation.
When the Parkland shooting happened, I just felt so sad because we've been living with this time and time and time again.
Michael Ian Black, a comedian and writer, penned an op-ed for the New York Times that went viral, pointing out the common thread among most mass shootings.
Boys are the ones who are committing these crimes. Boys are the ones who are pulling the trigger. And I wanted to raise the question, what's going on with the boys?
The statistics confirm the concerns. 1 in 4 boys are bullied. Only 30% tell an adult. Boys are 4 times more likely to be expelled from school than girls. The suicide rate is 4 times higher for males. And yes, 94% of mass shootings are committed by males.
Most boys are going to grow up and never ever commit acts of violence like this. But I feel confident in saying most boys would also rather starve to death in their homes than ask their male friend for help shoveling their driveway. This rigid model of masculinity, it's killing us.
We brought together a group
men to give us their take on.
My thought about this is, I think the biggest reason why, young men are experiencing a lot of this is because it's the lack of fathers. We know the statistics for the Black community is very, very high. Most people that are born into a Black family are born into single mother families. And we know that the price of not having a father in the house is bad. But even in the white community, who for the longest time mostly had 2-parent homes, that is starting to decline too. And I would think that not having a proper father role figure in the home to let you know how to be a man, how to produce your emotions, how to be vulnerable, how to to be that patriarch of the family, how to lead a family, how to lead your life, give you that advice that only a father can give you. I think that is really what is behind a lot of this, the stuff that's going on. Let me know, do you, young man, have a father or at least a father figure in your life? If so, how has that helped you? And if not, how has that led you down your path in life? I really think having a father is important because that father is that first figure that a boy can look up to and say is someone like me or someone I aspire to be. And without that child, that boy doesn't know how to be a man. That boy doesn't know how to deal with their emotions if they didn't have a father in the home. Or maybe they did have a father in the home, but the father was passive, not around, maybe working so much, or maybe he was just not a good dad. So I think having a father in the home really eliminates a lot of, a good father in the home really eliminates a lot of the things and the statistics that we see and the issues that we see with boys.
Emotional well-being of boys today.
Who's been told to man up? What does that mean?
No clue.
I want to say this. When the female asks and she says, who's been told to man up, and the boys, all of them raise their hand, I would say that I hear a lot of women telling men to man up. I feel like, yes, other men tell other men to man up and they tell boys to man up, but I feel like I've heard women say, you need to man up, you need to man up. I hear that more from women than I do from men. So it's just ironic that it's a female asking this question, who told you to man up, and what does that mean? When I hear that so much from women these days, especially single women, women who may have issues with men. I hear a lot of women say, you need to man up, you need to be a man. So it's just really interesting that she asked that question.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about growing up for boys?
Hiding the pain.
Yeah. Not being able to express yourself.
Kind of makes you feel trapped almost, because it's like you have nowhere to go.
I have sons who don't want to open up to me. Why would you do the, I'm fine, it's okay?
It's easier.
Why is it easier? You're hurting inside.
You're succeeding as a guy. You are doing the right thing. We were taught at a really young age, don't cry, have no fear.
You're like, okay, if I get through this, people will go, wow, that guy's really strong, he's tough.
The violence starts, the suicide starts, the depression starts, all about the same time that we ask boys to man up.
Dr. Niobe Way is a professor of developmental psychology at NYU, focused on adolescence.
Not needing other people, that is at the root of masculinity. And if you look at all the school shooters, including the one at Parkland, every single one of them has said in some way that they feel desperate for connection.
So there was this one time I was with my friend. He just looked at me, started crying. And I really had no idea what to do, because I'd never had anybody, any guy at least, express his just emotions towards me. He just said, I think I just need a hug, and I hugged him, and afterwards, we both looked at each other and we were like, we're never gonna say anything to anyone.
When you cry, does it make you feel like a failure?
Oh, there's that sense of sitting there going, why am I crying? I shouldn't be crying about this.
Because it's normal.
I understand.
It's amazing because that the interviewer is a woman. I really think that they should have had a man be the interviewer, because I think he would have been able to understand the men, because it's almost like she's pestering them as like, well, why not show emotion? Why not cry? It's more for women. It's nothing for a woman to be empathetic. That's in our biology. So it's almost like she just can't understand. But at the same time, if a man or a young boy were to really be vulnerable to their mother all the time, or vulnerable to their girlfriend or to other girls, a lot of girls don't like that. Let's be honest. Like, men are supposed to be the pillars of society. I know that things have changed, but I still believe that. And they're supposed to be leaders. Men are trees, and trees mean leaders biblically. And the thing is that if a man is always vulnerable, always crying, always, letting you in on everything, as a woman, it could be a lot for you to deal with. It could be a lot for you to take. And a lot of times I hear stories of men saying that their girlfriends are turned off, or their wives may be turned off about them showing so much emotion. So it's weird, because on one hand, women want men to be vulnerable, but on the other hand, women don't want men to be too vulnerable, because then women will lose that respect for that man. Women want to see men as strong, as leaders. They want them to man up. They want them to do all these things, but then at the same time, they want to be vulnerable. I think there should be a balance. I think as a man, you should be vulnerable, but it needs to be a balance. You shouldn't be falling apart either, because that's just not in your chemistry. Some things are emotional and they're able to be explained why men do certain things, and other things, maybe it's just biology. It's like, as the pillar of society, as a man, as a tree, I can't show so much emotion or be so vulnerable to where I'm falling apart, and where my girlfriend or wife has to try to pick up the pieces every time. It's just going to make her be turned off, but also it's going to put you as a man at a disadvantage. I think overall, men need to be vulnerable to other men, and maybe other people that they can really trust. Because even if you're vulnerable to another man, doesn't mean he's not going to try to blackmail you or anything like that. But I think you really just got to be, even if it is a girl or a woman, your significant other, definitely be vulnerable to them. But you got to, it's all about the timing, time, place, and also just pick your battles. Like, pick the people that you really trust to be vulnerable around. that have showed that they're not going to run away or they're not going to look at you differently because of your vulnerability.
That it is normal, but it is not normal at the same time. It's the best way I can put it. And they all laugh because they know exactly what I'm talking about. It is normal, but it isn't normal. It is human, but it is not man.
When you see these terrible headlines about gun violence, or when you see numbers of suicides going up, do you guys understand it?
100%.
Tell me why.
For people who aren't part of the normal guy group, they're both isolated from the other guys and often isolated from the girls around them.
How come these horrible school shooting incidents, it's always a guy? Why is it never a girl?
I don't think it ever will be a girl because girls will express their feelings and they will get it out.
Girls are able to have more acceptable outlets than guys.
I love that that young man said that girls have more acceptable outlets. It's more acceptable for a girl to be vulnerable and emotional and fall off the rails than it is for a man to be. And they have the outlets to do that. They have, women, we have way too many outlets, whether it's the media, whether it's counseling, we're more likely to go to counseling. It's just more in us because women, we're more emotional and we're more empathetic. And we can be vulnerable just by nature, whereas men historically are not vulnerable by nature. It takes a lot to take some time to get the vulnerability out of them. I think a lot of men, young men like yourself, you have to really trust that person before you test that person before you really let a lot out. And so, yes, there are way more avenues for women to be emotional, vulnerable than it is. It's more societally, it's more acceptable in society for women to be emotional. It's more acceptable among women for women to be emotional. If a group of women saw a man breaking down, crying, we would have empathy for them, but then somebody in that group might say, oh, you need to man up. Why is he crying? They may make fun of you. It's just what it is. But yet, if it were the other way around, if it were a woman breaking down and a group of men seeing that, that would probably be normal for them to see that because it's okay for women to break down.
How can we make things easier for you?
Get rid of the old stereotypes that we have in our society of a manly figure.
I think that starts with kids and teach them about expressing yourself without viewing it as a wrong.
I guess it's up to me to take that first step, hope that somebody is right behind me, and continue taking the second.
Steps a new generation hopes could help protect their own future. For today, Stephanie Rule, New York.
So that was the end of the video. What do you think, young man? Is it hard for you to be vulnerable? Is it difficult in society to be vulnerable? Are you scared to be vulnerable around women you trust, like your mom, your girlfriend, your wife? What do you think about being vulnerable as a young man? Is being emotional something that's acceptable for yourself, or do you have a hard time being emotional? I want to tell you that I don't believe there's anything wrong as a young man with being vulnerable. I think that there should be a balance. I don't think that you as a man, God has called you as a young man to be a tree, to be a leader. And I don't think that you as a young man are to be someone that is breaking down at every corner, at every moment and stuff like that. I think there should be a balance when it comes to men, as you are pillars of society, and that's what I believe personally. But I do think that you should be vulnerable. When you're supposed to be vulnerable, you're supposed to be vulnerable. And I think there are different outlets that you can use. You can go to therapy. I know that that's taboo for a lot of men, but you can go to therapy confidentially, privately. You can make a journal, maybe start a vlog. You don't have to put it on YouTube, but just record yourself talking to yourself on your phone, getting your feelings out, maybe writing down your feelings in a journal, or maybe talking to that trusted friend that you know has shown you that you can trust them and that is going to be by your side. But so I think young men definitely need an outlet and a space to be vulnerable. I just think that it needs to be balanced. Because I don't think we should get to a part of society where we're encouraging young men to be so vulnerable that they're breaking down at every corner and they are just as emotional as women. I just don't think that's necessary. But other than that, I just want to let you know that God wants you to be vulnerable with him. If you can't be vulnerable with anybody else, you can be vulnerable with God. You can tell God your business. You can tell God your truth. You can tell God what you're struggling with. You can tell God what you're going through, your trials, tribulations, what you're experiencing. Number one, he already knows. But number two, he loves to hear from you. He loves your voice and he loves to hear from you. He wants to hear from you today. So if anything else I've said doesn't ring a bell to you or anything like that, just know that God wants to hear you. Jesus loves you, and so do I.